Hello everyone, this is Fine from Awesome Tech Gaming Pro. I hope you all are well. This is the another part of the video about the TCL C845 TV. This is the 65-inch C845 version. Today I'm going to talk about this TV's new processor and many other things. Whether you should buy this TV or not. If you are new in my channel, then please subscribe and press the bell icon for future notifications and upcoming videos. I have another channel named Tech Gaming Villa, where I upload similar kind of tech videos like TV comparison, sound system, home theater. You can check and subscribe. The new processor also allows more complex picture processing, including improved content classification and the ability to better separate foreground and background elements. An AI approach, we were told, to apply different processing for, say, faces. Another lift in performance is the ability to have a 240 Hz refresh rate for the LCD panel. When in Full HD or Ultra HD, it runs to 144 Hz. The new TV is COMMENT ready for professional calibration and also supports 3D LUT calibration, enabling other third-party systems including light illustrations, color space. TCL Australia confirms that the C845 is color space integrated. We should note that some of the technical information here came from the European EISA briefing, and it's not uncommon for TVs to vary across regions. Indeed, for some brands, there's the norm, the specifications for Australia and Europe seem to match, though neither TCL LIKE nor European TCL knows the other version. So can't confirm. All the review comments relate to the Australian TV sample. Once you have turned the TV on, Google TV and Google Home app take over the step process, which is convenient in many ways. If not all, you gain the most benefit if you already have a Google Home. If you use the Google Home app with various Googleable devices within it, the TV then appears as a device to be set up. You allocate the home and the room and can then share your content Wi-Fi with the TV without all the tedious typing of passwords. Once joined, you can use Google Home for basic controls, including a virtual remote control. Here we did experience a downside to handling setup over to Google Home. It rarely works perfectly when it got to the Wi-Fi connection. For example, the TV announced it was connected, but the Google Home app said it had failed and we should try again. We had no choice. We had to keep using the app to get through the setup. So we had to do it again. Happily, the second time it worked and we move on. Then after a firmware update, quite long, this perhaps 20 minutes, the TV asked which Wi-Fi network we would like to connect to. Well, the one you are already attached to, we replied the TV having just downloaded an app update. When we selected it again, said the TV a stored network, here we go, but it then said it couldn't find it despite already being on it. In the end, we had to select a different network and yes, had to type in the Wi-Fi password from scratch. So not a lot of time saved there overall. We are also asked to pair the remote control with the TV again, or we'd already been using the remote just fine. So remember that these things are rarely as straightforward or as smart as they pretend. Persistence and cups of tea get you there in the end. Finally connected and given all its permissions, the TV began installing apps, some of which were cleverly pre-selectable during the Google setup. This took another half an hour at least, something which say might vary with connection speeds, but we're doing 45 megabyte per second download speed at the time, so perhaps not much. Very early during setup, the TV warns you that it has an active microphone on board, and that's it on. In the manual, it says it will be off by default until you tap the physical mic switch next to the TV's power button. But they may have changed this default because it's not easy to find, and the manual doesn't tell you where to look eventually after fetching or shaping mirror. We located these controls on the under edge of the TV to the left of the bottom TCL logo. The mic button isn't labeled, but when you flick the switch, a message comes up that the mic is now muted, and the familiar 4 amber Google Mute lights come on above the TCL logo. If you like privacy and plan to have the mic off, these lights will be permanently on, which is just a little bit annoying. You may be encouraged to mute the mic if you take the trouble to go through both Google's and TCL's terms and conditions and privacy statements before you click agree to everything. We'll have about an hour of on-screen reading to do, but you will realize that everything you click, everything you watch, and potentially far more besides will be noted, stored, and will be made available to comply with law enforcement activities. For example, just so you know, we are not saying this TV is worse than any other in this regard, but there was no way to proceed the setup without pressing agree. So just be aware that one hidden cost of having a smart TV is that smart TVs report things back to base. Google TV is all about improved recommendations across your services. So it was curious to find ourselves initially served dominantly Disney Plus recommendations. Even though we weren't subscribed, we started deleting unwanted apps like Disney Plus and Prime. But for others, including Stun, we could only disable or uninstall updates or force stop the last presumably escape stuck app. It was the same for nearly everything else on the initial app list. So we disabled the least useful of them. I must improve the homepage recommendations for ABC 9 and 10. UBTB. And once we'd started Netflix and been cleverly auto-signed in by Google, both YouTube and Netflix shows came up in continue watching. One thing we missed from the Roku interface was the ease of accessing external inputs. We couldn't find a way to get these within the main Google TV homepage other than sometimes temporarily in especially for you. So you need to press the inputs button on the remote control to make your selection or use voice. Settings can also be accessed from the remote, popping up a box with a few key settings. But for the rest, you have to press a second settings icon inside the first. Our setting delighted us. Audio adjustment, which goes positively and also slightly negative. This is extremely rare as it requires video delay, memory intense activity with the high resolutions available today. Yet this is the only way to solve most sync issues. If you see its picture quality, the picture was immediately impressive out of the box, the kind of visual punch that sells high-level TVs. It launched in Eco Picture mode, which we initially switched up to Smart HDR. The luminance was mad, yet never crashing or flaring, but instead supporting crazily three-dimensional contrast and clarity between edges of objects. No apparent enhancement, just pure performance. It is really hyper-realistic. This show like Formula One Drive to Survive well, with all those F1 primary colors, Ferraris, red, intense green, McLaren's, etc. colors are pop. And that's also a great show for checking motion. Of course, as with other TCL sets, whichever picture setting we choose, we activated motion settings under advanced settings, shifting blur reduction and shutter reduction to between 3 and 5. There's no filmmaker mode. The movie mode is TCL's nearest equivalent for our long-term viewing pleasure. This has more to recommend it than Smart HDR. You don't get quite the bonkers contrast, but it's more realistic and performs well with all manner of content. Video and film sourced, at least it does once two settings are tweaked. First, as with most filmmaker modes, it shows the tint right down to warm, and we'd recommend returning that to the center as starting point. Second, the movie mode turns off all motion settings as requested by Tom Cruise. But really, Retail is good, and happily TCL allows you to tweak this mode like any other. Dolby Vision material, however, will trigger TCL's Dolby Vision modes, 4 in all, but with Dolby Vision IQ, the default, this senses the ambient light conditions and moves to Dolby Vision Dark if you are in a dark room, and Dolby Vision Bright if you are in a very bright room. Such systems can often be compromised by mixed lighting or a sunbeam on the sensor, but this was the first time we have left IQ running, since the results seemed never to offend, not to suddenly pump when detecting a change. More good implementation there. There's also Dolby Vision Game, which works in a slightly different way. The TV set communicating with the game console, communicating its available specification, then getting just pre-processed output from console, thereby minimizing latency through the TV. There's extensive gaming support on this TV. One picture mode surprised me, IMAX. If you play IMAX enhanced content, you get IMAX settings, though it occasionally kicked off with other material too. But this seemed just a variation of the movie mode settings. IMAX enhanced comes from the same maker as DTS audio, and there is a DTS Virtual X here available when listening to the TV's own speakers. We gather it's included partly because TCL finds Virtual X better at virtualizing from stereo on their speaker. Dolby content, however, will play in virtualized Atmos. Indeed, the TV's sound system proved quite serviceable for a small room. Its 2.1 solution branded to OnQ, the 0.1 being a dedicated bass speaker highlighted prominently on the back of the TV. There are no drivers on the TV to deliver height or width beyond the screen, other than the virtualization trickery. So it's still very much worth upgrading the sound. We used the C845 with two other audio systems. Firstly, one of the company's own soundbars, and secondly, a full 5:1:2 channel system headed at the time by a Sony receiver. With a full sound system, we could further appreciate the C845's high quality pictures. However, the HDMI ER connection initially refused to send audio to the Sony. It could see it because it flashed a message up on the screen. We selected ARP as the TV's audio output and its own speakers went quiet, but nothing reached the receiver. In addition, there seemed some HDMI handshaking conflict. If we selected an input on the receiver to play from, it was immediately overlooked by the ARP connection, and we could only force the issue by changing the receiver input repeatedly. The sound issue fixed itself a couple of days later, with the receiver not only playing fine but now identifying the receiver model correctly. But the only way to solve the handshake was to turn off all HDMI CEC options, which was a shame as it was handy to have the TV remote control working the receiver and everything turning off with one press. Back on the pictures with the tweaked movie mode in use, the 55-inch C845 simply shone across all kinds of content: Ultra HD Star Wars movie action, the vivid flora of ABC's Gardening Australia, live Ashes sessions from the UK, and even without the more brilliant picture modes, there were some superb Dolby Vision IQ moments where those needs made their mark. The Netflix series True Difference Unchanged looked spectacular. The intense mountain climbs 19 minutes into episode 4 were breathtaking in the impact of their colors and brightness, and yet realistically so, not exaggerated. One byproduct of the brightness is evident on subtitles. This show is best watched with the French soundtrack and English subtitles, but the text overlay, presumably full white, almost seared my eyeballs. Some people don't like subtitles anyway. They really won't like subtitles that they require sunglasses but no blue. Anyway, that's the smallest of distractions from an image which combined brilliance with excellent motion handling and being set and forget across a range of material. Nor is there any problem watching on the sunniest of days with ambient light streaming in, given the brightness available here, combined with the TCL's smart settings. Take that OLED. And let's more add a big USB stick. You have a PVR to pause and store broadcast. You can have art of photo screensavers, and there's Bluetooth out for headphone listening, even for a Bluetooth speaker or soundbar, given that negative sync adjustment. But the main wow remains that super bright picture and everything you need to optimize it or to let the TV optimize itself. Again, we say of a TCL TV, it's just hard to believe the quality you can get for the money these days. So what's your thought about this 55-inch C845? Please write in the comments below. That's it from now.